Hi, so it's now almost 1 week since I submitted my PhD thesis. So this is Friday, I submitted it last Saturday, New Year's Eve, and I did a video immediately after submitting, and I just kind of want to do another wee one a week after submitting, just because talking through it helps me process it as I'm chatting about it. So it has been a weird one. So I knew it would be kind of good to submit. Obviously, it's going to be good to submit, but I knew that it was going to be good. I wasn't thinking, oh, it's going to be absolutely amazing, I'm going to feel overjoyed. I was never thinking that anyway. And I think mainly because of the rush leading up to it, the fact that, there pretty much was only one full draft. So I haven't had like lots and lots of different feedback on it. And I'm definitely aware now of some things that could be better, but that's good to have that awareness, is what I'm learning. I'm currently in a hotel. I'm just at a wee travel lodge, just having a couple of days break. I've got my new Christmas jammies. My daughter got me these, Peppa Pig, best granny ever, it says. So I'm comfy, having a break from home, a change of scenery. So I just thought I'd have a wee chat while I had peace. So yeah, submitted it last week. Now last week, immediately after submitting, anxiety kicked in. And I mean major anxiety. I was not expecting the anxiety. I always knew I was going to get anxiety about the Viva. I just didn't know it was going to kick in quite so quickly. Sorry, my lungs aren't the best at the minute, so try and see past the breathing issues. So submitted it. I felt, obviously there was some sense of relief in the fact that this is finally submitted. I've done it. But immediately anxiety about the Viva. Went to bed. I went to bed, maybe stayed up for an hour and a bit, watched some telly, had some cake and tea. And then went to bed, but did not sleep. So my mind just was going crazy. I started Googling Viva questions, stuff that I could see online. Found a list, some really helpful blogs, was amazing. But I was pretty much looking through these questions going, there is not one question I could answer right now, apart from what motivated this research, which I could answer no problem, because my daughter motivated my research. So my research is based on autism in secondary schools. I was motivated to do this research because one of my daughters is autistic, and we really noticed struggles during secondary school, both as her as a pupil and me as a parent. So that's kind of what motivated the research. So I could talk all day about that, so that's not an issue. But it was all the other ones, and this is my problem, and this is why I get anxiety about the Viva, because I can write you anything. You can ask me any question, I'll write you an essay on it, not a problem. But if you ask me a question to my face, I just freeze, absolutely freeze. And it could be the simplest question, and for some reason, simple words that I know make no sense to me anymore. And it could be the simplest words, honestly. I've spoken about it before. I sat in an interview once and, just made a complete mess of it purely because this reason. If somebody asks me a question, I freeze. And then when it gets worse, and then the anxiety builds, and then I want to cry, and I probably will cry. I mean, I cried after my APR, so the annual progress review. So all these things. So when I'm looking at these questions, and then I'm thinking, what if they ask it in a way I don't understand? So yeah, I had that all night, and then I woke up first thing in the morning. So I only got a few hours sleep. Woke up first thing in the morning, still on high anxiety, still thinking, how am I going to do this? How am I even going to do this? I can't answer anything. And then I noticed, so I don't know why I did it. I'm glad I did. So because we're doing the, digital everything, so I didn't have to print off hard copies, which I'm so glad about, because this made it so much easier, made me able to submit pretty much in the last hour sort of thing. So to submit the thesis, you submit it in a shared folder that you're sent through my university. And obviously I submitted mine during the holidays, so I knew that no one would have been processing it yet. So the next morning I was just opened up my thesis, and straight away on the contents page noticed that at last minute I had added a sort of introductory paragraph to one of the chapters, and it had gone on as a heading on my contents page, and my contents page numbers were off. I think it was like 8.1, 8.2, 8.5, 8.6, and I was like, oh my goodness. Which I know in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be like a fail because of it, but it's just so irritating because given that the thesis isn't the one that I would have handed in if I hadn't got ill, I could at least make it presentable. So I went back into the folder and just changed it. I changed it and uploaded the new version and I sent them an email just to explain that that's what had happened. So I still don't think it's been processed, so I think it's all good. I know that kind of moves the submission date on the email, on the folder, but, I explained it and I can't see them telling me, no, you're past your submission date for like a couple of hours. So anxiety was still high, but I'd sort of screenshotted this mistake and put it on Instagram, and someone commented, messaged me actually privately and said, don't worry about it. And then we got in a little bit of chat, and she just had said, one of the things she said just sort of struck a chord and helped me to calm down again. And it was just really, she was speaking about her Viva and how, it's nice to be in the room with people and they don't know everything about your topic because you did the research. And that kind of eased it a bit. So it sort of like stopped the anxiety building. So it brought it back down the hill a wee bit. And then I just went out that day. So it was New Year's Day. Went up, picked my mum up, took her up to my stepdad's grave. She poured a wee can of lager at his grave, and then we went to McDonald's and just sat and had a coffee, and I could just feel me starting to relax a bit more and not be as panicked. And then I started thinking of things and started jotting them down. So I either left notes on my phone and then copied them into a notebook, or just wrote them down, like some weaknesses. So there was wee things coming to me. I thought, well, I could answer that, and I could begin to answer this, and then I started relaxing enough to see, well, you've got time to think about how to do this question, how to answer that question. And I've got a friend who's going to be reading my thesis as well, and I have asked her to be brutal. Like, just any weaknesses, anything you notice, any questions you think I might be asked, just tell me. Any red flags, just tell me. Be brutal. And then that way I can prepare for the Viva. My daughter is also going to read the thesis. She sent me a message to say, oh, I'll read it. Well, when I said I'd emailed it to her, she said, oh, I'll read it in a couple of days. And I was like, does she realise this is like huge? And then she messaged me to say a couple of days later, I'm going to have to read this in over a period of time. And I was like, yep, it's huge. But I think that'll be a nice talking point during the Viva as well, because I do mention that she's motivated the research. So I think being able to say, oh, she read it as well and this is her thoughts. So I think that'll be a nice talking point during the Viva. I am still scared. It keeps coming in waves. So one minute I'll be like, it's fine, it's cool, you can do it. And other minutes I'm like, I can't. How am I going to answer this? I'm going to freeze. I'm going to feel like an idiot. But one thing I've done is I ordered a Viva prep book from Amazon, Rowena Murray, which I've read some of her books before, or I've read a book before, something she's done, and it was really good. Probably How to Write Your Thesis. And then I ordered a big new notepad and post-it notes so that I can just start making notes as these things come to me. And that's what's been happening over the past few days. So whenever something comes to mind, I will just jot it down in notes on my phone, and then the next day, because most of this happens at night in bed when I'm Googling Viva questions again and Viva experiences, and then things will come to mind or little tips, and then the next day I will then write them down in my big notebook. So that is all building, ready for me to kind of address. It's supposed to be on Monday, because I'm supposed to be taking this weekend to just relax, but I did come with a little jotter and a pen, and I may have emailed myself lots of files, because I think it'll be a good idea to go back to the start, to go back to my annual progress review and see how things have changed, to go back to, you know, supervision notes to see how things have developed since then, because it's been such a long time. We're having time off through illness and through, you know, going to overseas visits and stuff. You know, time has gone on. So going back to the start is quite a while. So I thought, well, it's good that I have all these things, you know, going back to my ethics response from the ethics committee, changes I had to make, going back to the feedback from the APR, if I've addressed those issues. So I think, you know, I'm on the right track because I am thinking about it. And I also got another little thin book from Amazon, which is the Viva. And I think all the different books that you read, you get something from everything. So one of the good tips actually that I got from that wee book was that, because what part of the Viva is going to be, you know, current research, things that are happening since you submitted or since you wrote it. And this little book, the advice was, if you type in whatever topic it is you're looking for with PPT, PowerPoint at the end, it will bring up current sort of like PowerPoint slides, and so I tested it out in bed on my tablet and it worked. So that was good. And that was also good as well, because the PowerPoint that I did find, there was some talk about bullying and autism, which I speak about a bit in the thesis, and the references that they had used for it, I was like, I've used that as well. I've used those references. So it's just sort of that kind of validation that you're on the right track. I also have another friend who is going to have a think about, or she's going to go through her notes from her Viva. Recently, she was another office mate and friend, and she is going to go back and see what kind of questions she was asked or any tips that she found. She had to do hers virtually as well, so that will be useful to know. But she, like me, is very thankful that it's going to be virtual, because that whole freezing thing will just be 10 times worse if I have to go in and sit in a room. So I think for me, it's going to be really good to be able to do it virtually. But that brings up other issues, like one option is that I go to my friend's house and do the Viva there, because if any technical issues occur, then she will be able to fix that, no problem. It's also support, and it's also, I suppose, we can go out afterwards for food or, you know, just to chill. But then I'm also aware that I'm going to be exhausted. So then I would have to get home. So should I do it at home? And if I do it at home, is my cat going to cry her head off the whole time? Which she does lately because her other little cat died. So she cries a lot. My other son will most likely be at home. He has OCD, so he runs the tap a lot. So there's that worry. But I guess he's a bit more controllable in the sense that if I was to say to him in advance, listen, this is happening at this time, you need to be super duper quiet. And I got some comfort from that as well, because I was reading other people's experiences of doing the Viva virtually, and it says, you know, that everyone is aware of things like that can happen because of COVID. Lots of the Vivas meetings have been done online, and that, you know, that's fine. And if there is a technical hitch, you know, if I've got the phone there, so that gives me comfort, because sometimes my internet connection can be not the greatest. But if I've got a phone there, then I could then, whether I have to download whatever app on it, or just do it by phone if need be. So that's an option. So these are things I'm going to have to ask my supervisors about, things to mull over, because I'm still not sure. I don't know if it'd be better just being at home. The comfort in my own home. Another thing I need to look into is reasonable adjustments because I do have health issues. One of them being the lung disease, which isn't doing great at the minute, to be honest, and I will tire, especially if I'm anxious on top of that. So my breathing, will get a bit off, depending on how long it's going to be. Also, just the dermatomyositis, the fact that I'm, tapering from steroids, so I am going to get worse before I get better, and I'm going to get very much worse. And I don't know how that's going to fit in with Viva, because I don't have a date yet. So I think there should be some sort of reasonable adjustments, and the whole brain fog thing with all the medication and the tapering. So it may be that we have some sort of something put in place where maybe I'm asked some questions the night before or given some questions the night before. I don't know how it'll work. Because before I was thinking maybe that should just be instead of the Viva, because I know that can be put in place. But I also don't want to miss out on the Viva experience, because as much as it terrifies me, I still kind of want to do it. Especially because my external, I am a great follower of his work. I am absolutely thrilled that he's agreed to be the examiner, my external. So as much as it'll be slightly intimidating, it will also be fantastic. And I know that he will love my research. I know he will. So yeah, there's just so many things to consider. And it does help kind of talking out loud. And I guess it is going to help, maybe even if I have some practice sessions just with friends, like the friend who's going to read my thesis, maybe if we kind of do it virtually as well, where she asks me questions so I can get used to it. There is also so when I did the APR, the person that did the APR, one of them, was someone who I'd always wanted to be the internal, but she also slightly terrifies me as well. But she has a real great interest in autism and disability. But the rules have changed, and because she was there at my APR, she can no longer be my internal. So that's a bit gutting. But I was thinking of maybe asking if she would do a mock Viva with my supervisors, or even just read it and send me some questions via email if that's, if she'd rather. So that's something else I need to kind of ask and put forward to my supervisors. So as well as ordering books and notepads, every night, even when I'm just give yourself peace, I will start printing off. I will look up files and send them to myself on Messenger, and then next day I will print them off. So I've got a bunch of stuff. So I'm kind of all over the place. So I will then think, right, so I've got to know current research. I'll have a wee quick look for current research. And then I'll think, right, I need to look at, the people that really influenced my work the most from the literature. So it's right, looking at their details, get to know them more. Who is this person that I've been referencing? So I feel like I've been doing little bits of everything, which is great, because then, I'm not just completely blank to it. But I think it would be nice to, from Monday, be a bit more structured with that. So maybe today I'm going to focus on looking at the methodology, how I'm going to answer methodology questions, or the next day I'm going to look at the literature and what's the influences and current research and where my research fits, rather than just jumping back and forward. Because I need to kind of structure it and know that I know enough. And then there's also the question when I look up, how long should you prepare for the Viva? And some people are saying a week to 2 weeks. Anything more, you'll drive yourself crazy. But I'm a week to 2 weeks, no, I need more than that. And also I don't know a Viva date, and I'm thinking, do I want it to be a wee bit later, or do I want it to be sooner? And I'm really not sure on that either. Maybe from mid-February onwards would be great. So we'll see. But that is where I'm at with Viva since submitting my thesis nearly a week ago. So I am sure I will update when I know more information. But if anybody here, anybody watching, has done Viva or is also preparing for the Viva, if you have any tips, anything, any kind of way that you were asked questions, especially in the social sciences, would be fantastic. I welcome any advice, any feedback. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a lovely weekend and get to spend your spoons on something fun.